Hi there, this is Dana Arcuri, author, speaker, and wellness advocate. And last year I started a few video topics that were totally brand new, but based on all the ratings, the reviews, and the comments, and so many people sharing their own stories about toxic, dysfunctional families, I'm going to continue this theme and stay on these different topics that relate to the narcissistic parent, the toxic siblings, the black sheep of the family, the flying monkeys. And so if you yourself have been following along and watching these YouTube videos of mine, today's a more sensitive one, and I don't even know how this is going to play out. I decided to not make notes, have nothing in front of me. I'm just going to talk candidly about some heavy things that have just kind of come down recently, very unfortunate situations that are beyond my control with my narcissistic mother and sisters. And so, for those who don't know, 4 months ago, I decided that enough was enough. I was done with my 50+ years of being verbally abused by my siblings and my mother. I was at a point where I knew the only way I could move forward and heal and really seek peace of mind was to cut the ties. And while it wasn't something impulsive and it wasn't something that I randomly decided to spontaneously do, instead it was more of a very long, lengthy process for many, many years of deciding on what is best for me, for my health, for my well-being, and even just for the relationships in the family that are quite manipulative and dysfunctional. So understand right off the bat that this isn't easy for me. It took me years and years and years to reach a point where I've been awoken to the truth that these people will not change. And while it is heartbreaking that we can have family, so whether you yourself have siblings, a mother, a father, or maybe your situation is a narcissistic boyfriend, girlfriend, wife, husband, or what have you, you know, for some people it is family and relatives. For other people it is a romantic interest, whether it's someone you're married to or someone you're just dating. But many people have come across these manipulative, dysfunctional, unhealthy relationships, and they reach a breaking point. And for me, the breaking point was 4 months ago. And it wasn't really like something major happened. It was just a point where I could see I can't fix my mother. I can't fix my siblings. I can't fix this broken, toxic family. And so I reached a place where I can just understand that it's beyond my human capacity. I can only take responsibility for myself, just like you. You know, whatever's going on in your family or your romantic relationships, it is really something that might be out of control right now. I mean, it might just be a big hot mess, but each of us has that turning point. Like we reach this fork in the road, this transition where all of a sudden we start seeing things a lot more clearly. And it doesn't look good, and it doesn't feel good, and it is messy, because sometimes love is messy. It can hurt, and sometimes it could just cut like a knife. So for me, 4 months ago, I decided to go no contact, and up until this Sunday, I was 4 months no contact. And so for me, I finally felt like in these 4 months that I was, I could breathe again, I could dream again, I could live again. I was finally feeling like I was healing, and I started seeing a therapist, and she was part of the healing journey. You know, and then there I am, you know, I'm writing, because for me, I write because it's cathartic, it's therapeutic, and for me, writing's super helpful and kind of like looking at my emotions, processing pain. understanding dysfunctional families, and just writing out what I'm going through and exploring ways that I can move forward in my own wellness journey. So I wasn't planning on picking up the phone this Sunday. It started ringing, and my daughter mentioned that we have caller ID like most people, and it showed a hospital. And immediately I was thinking it was my in-laws. Something was wrong with them. So I wanted my kids to pick up the phone fast. They were closest to it, and I'm saying, pick up, and they're saying, no, just listen to the message. Let's just listen and see who it is before we decide to talk. I wasn't near the phone, and so it ended up it was my mother. Now, she has called here and there for the past 4 months in which we haven't spoken. Several times she called, I wasn't home. She left a message. As I mentioned, I went no contact in November 2018, and that means you don't talk on the phone, you don't send emails, you don't go visit. You know, someone could be lying on their deathbed, and when you're no contact, pretty much how it works is you remain no contact. Because what happens is if you end up in contact with the narcissistic parent or the toxic siblings, you could end up having this huge setback. And so I'm going to start from the get-go. I've had a huge, huge setback because things played out very poorly. There's so many ways to think of it. There's pros and cons on talking to my mother, and I'll mention a few pointers while I speak. So my mother's leaving a message on my answering machine, and of course I can hear it, and eventually I decide, that's it, I'm picking up. And the reason I picked up is because she mentioned she was in the hospital, and so of course it alarmed me, and I'm also going to just keep it real here. You know, even though my mother is abusive, manipulative, dysfunctional, toxic, and we have a very unhealthy relationship, I still love my mother. I will always love my mother. She's my mother, okay? She's my mother. And even though she treats me like shit, and even though she treats me like a doormat, and even though I'm like a punching bag to my mother, I still love her. Call me crazy, people, but I still love her. And isn't that how most of us feel? That the people who are hurting us, we still love them? You know, isn't it crazy? Sometimes I'm like, why? But I picked up the phone because she mentioned she was in the hospital. And so we start talking. And I didn't want to get into a fight, okay? Number one, if she's not feeling well, I don't want to have a big blowout, you know? And number two, I needed to know the facts, like what happened? What's going on? What's your diagnosis? What are the doctors doing? What hospital are you at? What is the prognosis? I mean, I needed to get details from her, and I needed to remain focused on this phone call. And so I started getting the information out of her and finding out what was going on and what happened. And she came right out and said, this was at least over 1 week ago. Well, let that sink in. Over 1 week ago, my mother landed in the ER. Nobody called me. I have 4 siblings. Not one sibling called me. Not one relative contacted me to tell me that my mother was in the ER, and then they diagnosed her with a very serious illness, and they admitted her into the hospital, and she was in the hospital for about a week, and nobody called me. Nobody contacted me. And then from there, she went into a rehab because now she has to get physical therapy and occupational therapy and the whole thing to get her on her feet again and to help her in her recovery process. And yet, not one relative, not one sibling ever even thought, maybe I should call Dana. No, nobody called me. And so my mother's on the phone and she's telling me what happened, and she came right out. I didn't say it. I didn't even initiate the topic of my siblings not calling me. My mother initiated this conversation, and out of her mouth, she said, I asked your sisters if they called you and they refused. Interesting. Isn't that amazing that there my mother is sick, hospitalized, and then in a rehab, and yet she managed to call me, but yet my sisters couldn't call me? I mean, this is pure insanity, and it goes to show how cruel and how mean-spirited toxic siblings are. And of course, I still wonder, why did my mother really call? Was she really calling because she cared about me? Or was she really calling because she wanted to see if I'd drop everything and run to her side and just bask in her glory and just bow down to her, you know, the queen, the wonderful mother. Oh, she's mother of the year. And it's like, no, I'm not going to do that. You know, and I needed to make things very verbally clear when I communicated things to her on the phone this week. I needed to make things clear. You know, yes, I care about you. Yes, I love you, but I'm not a doormat. Okay, I'm not your punching bag. And I've spent 50 some years putting up with this toxic BS, and it is time to say no more. I respect myself. I respect my purpose in life, my person, who I am, you know, who I am as a human being. I respect me, myself. I am worthy and I am valuable. Just like you are worthy, you are cherished, you are valuable. You are not meant to be treated like crap, to be abused physically, verbally, emotionally, sexually, or spiritually. You know, we have to reach a point where we just say, I'm done. I can't fix you. I'm not going to take responsibility for someone else's actions. I could only take responsibility for my actions. But how it played out was heartbreaking. It was just heartbreaking. So I'm on the phone with her. We're done talking about the medical stuff, and she wants to know, what's wrong with you? Of course, that's how she has to, you know, word it. What's wrong with you? Instead, it's like, no, she doesn't want to talk about what's wrong with her, what's wrong with all the years of all the abuse and the neglect from my childhood and all the things that have come down through my lifetime, the wrongdoings, the betrayal, the harassment, the, you know, verbal and physical abuse. No, she didn't want to talk about that. She'd rather think that I'm the problem. And you see, that's what the narcissistic parent does. This is what the narcissistic person, whether it's your spouse, boyfriend, girlfriend, mother, or father, or siblings, this is how they behave. Their mindset is so distorted that in their eyes, they're fine. In their eyes, they're perfect. They can do no wrong. In their eyes, it has to be someone else. They will always blame someone else. They will never, ever take responsibility or accountability for their words, thoughts, actions, behaviors, neglect, abuse, and anything else that comes your way. They'll never, ever take accountability for it, and that's just the way it is. And so we're on the phone, and I told her just as it is. I love you, I care about you, but I need healthy boundaries. I need you to respect me and to not treat me like a punching bag. And I said right out, I am not a doormat for you to walk all over. And I will only see you and have a relationship with you if you could respect me and my boundaries. And if not, I can't see you and I can't be in a relationship with you. And I said, it's your choice. And she said, then you will never see me alive again. And she slammed the phone down. She hung up on me. And this is very common behaviors of the narcissist. You know, you give them an ultimatum. You either treat me right and you respect me and you respect my boundaries, or you get the hell out. And I don't want to see you again. And I am not going to be in contact with you because I refuse to put up with dysfunctional, toxic, unhealthy relationships. And this is typically how things do play out in many relationships, whether it's family or a love relationship, that we get to a breaking point. We get to these messy places where we just have had enough. We've seen enough, and we can't unsee the cobweb of lies, the deception, the years and years of abuse, whether it's physical, whether it's emotional, whether it's spiritual or some kind of sexual abuse. We get to a point where we realize that the only way that this is going to stop is for us, meaning me, to break the cycle of generational abuse. And I'm not going to get into the whole generational thing, like deep into it, but I am going to say when I follow the family ancestry and I follow into the different relatives and grandparents, there is generational abuse. There is on both sides of the family, meaning my mother and my father's, there's addictions, there's all kinds of horrible abuse, toxic, dysfunctional relationships and families. And it reached a point where on Sunday, I made it clear, I communicated what I needed. She made it clear she was not going to change for me. She was not going to stop her toxic, manipulative behaviors. And so she hung up on me. And when I started to process this whole stuff, everything that happened on this phone call and even just in my whole lifetime, like how it's reached this point. It's reached this time and this place where there is no turning back. And I have no regrets. I'm thankful in a way that I talked to my mom, that I accepted her call, because now we have closure. Now we have closure. Now she knows where I stand. I know where she stands. It doesn't feel good. I'll be honest, it feels like crap. And you could guarantee I've cried a puddle of tears for the past 3 days. I've been in a really bad place, a really dark place. It's absolutely heart-wrenching to know that your mother rejects you, that your mother abandoned you, that your mother betrayed you, and then to find out that my siblings are basically enablers. They're enablers. They are enabling my mother to continue to be a narcissistic parent. They are lying for her, defending her. They are covering for her, and she does the same thing for them. And so she covers for them, especially the golden child. And as everyone knows, the person who's the scapegoat, you're the one who gets, treated like a punching bag. You're the one who gets constantly told that it's your fault and it's all your problem and it's all you and it's not them. And they'll have a whole list of bullshit that they're like basically telling you everything that's wrong with you and everything and why it's your fault. And let's keep in mind that it's not your fault. And it's very unfortunate that we live in a society where we have such brokenness in our families, brokenness in marriages, brokenness with such generational bondage. I mean, it really is. It's generational bondage. There is a spiritual realm that goes into this, which is a whole other video in itself. But you could guarantee that the devil will do whatever he can to stir up this tension and to stir the pot in the family, to get people who are in division with each other. And we have to understand this is not just something physically and emotionally, that there's a spiritual realm involved here. So be aware of that. And then also know that, now this is for a lot of people who've been leaving me comments on my other videos about the toxic siblings, the black sheep in the family, the scapegoat, the flying monkeys, the narcissistic parent or the narcissistic mate, whether it's your boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse, or what have you. Know that you don't have to put up with this. You are a person who has a purpose in life. There's a great plan for you, and you don't need someone to be trampling all over you, all over your feelings, and mistreating you and bullying you. I've had countless people write comments about how their siblings are beating them up. Their siblings are physically and emotionally, and some of them are even sexually abusing them. And this is just not called for. You need to pick up the phone. You need to report this, whether you report it to your local authorities, meaning police officers, whether you look for a social worker or you go to a crisis center. There are so many different hotlines, and I'll investigate it more and leave some links so you can have a little help, as far as websites and resources. But do not tolerate physical, sexual, emotional, or spiritual abuse. You have a wonderful purpose and you deserve respect. You deserve love. You deserve people who could surround you and encourage you and lift you up. And today, the one thing I'm walking away from is that I spoke my truth. I'm living in the truth. I'm walking forward in life. It doesn't mean it's easy, but it means it is definitely doable, that I could rebuild my life without my family, that I have other people in my life. I have my husband and my children, and I have friends, and I have so many people on social media, whether it's YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, what have you, who are there to cheer me on. And I just thank you. I thank you for your prayers. I thank you for your encouragement. Please share with me if you're going through right now a hot mess with your family or with someone who's toxic and hurtful and narcissistic. And you could visit my website at danaarcuri.com. Thanks and have an awesome day.